Everyone thinks Celebrimbor's story ended the moment Sauron killed him, but that's not what really happened, because death was never the most terrifying part of Celebrimbor's fate. Most people remember him as the legendary elven smith who forged the Rings of Power, the craftsman whose skill rivaled the greatest creators in Middle-earth, the proud lord who dared to oppose Sauron and paid the ultimate price. And that's where the story usually ends. But if you look closer, a far darker picture emerges. Because Celebrimbor wasn't simply defeated by Sauron, he became something much worse, a warning, a monument to failure, a symbol of how the greatest strengths can become the instruments of our destruction. And once you understand what really happened to Celebrimbor, you'll realize that his fate may be one of the most horrifying in all of Tolkien's legendarium. Not because he died, but because of why he died, and what his death ultimately meant. The real mystery isn't how Sauron killed Celebrimbor. The real mystery is this: why did one of the wisest and most gifted elves in Middle-earth fall for Sauron's deception in the first place? How could the heir of the greatest craftsman ever to live fail to see what was standing right in front of him? And perhaps even more disturbing, was Celebrimbor's downfall inevitable from the very beginning? To answer that question, we need to go back long before the Rings of Power, long before Sauron revealed himself, long before war consumed Eregion, because the seeds of Celebrimbor's destruction were planted centuries earlier. Celebrimbor was no ordinary elf. He was descended from one of the most infamous bloodlines in existence. His grandfather was Feanor, the creator of the Silmarils, the greatest craftsman who ever lived, and also one of the most tragic figures in all of history. Feanor possessed an extraordinary gift. He could create beauty unlike anything the world had ever seen. But that gift slowly transformed into obsession. His creations became extensions of himself, and when they were threatened, he was willing to destroy kingdoms, start wars, and doom entire peoples to preserve them. Think of it like a fire. At first, a fire provides warmth and light, but left unchecked, it consumes everything around it. The same passion that creates greatness can also create ruin, and most people never realize that Celebrimbor inherited exactly the same fire, not the cruelty, not the pride, but the overwhelming desire to create something magnificent, something that would endure forever. This is where things get darker, because Middle-earth during the Second Age was changing. The glory of the elves was slowly fading. Time itself seemed to be slipping away. The beauty they loved could not last. Their kingdoms would eventually diminish. Their achievements would be forgotten. And for immortal beings, that realization was terrifying. Imagine spending thousands of years building something beautiful only to watch it slowly decay. Imagine knowing that no matter what you do, loss is inevitable. That was the fear haunting the elves, and Celebrimbor believed he had found a solution. Then Sauron arrived, not as a dark lord, not as a tyrant, but as Anatar, the Lord of Gifts, a teacher, a guide, a friend. And this is the hidden mechanism that changes everything. Sauron did not conquer Celebrimbor through fear, he conquered him through hope. Most villains threaten. Sauron offered possibilities. He presented knowledge, wisdom, power. He offered a way to preserve beauty forever, a way to stop decline, a way to master time itself. To Celebrimbor, this seemed like salvation. But that's not what really happened, because Sauron's greatest weapon was understanding desire. He looked at people the way a master smith looks at metal. He studied weaknesses, pressures, fault lines, and then he shaped them. He didn't create Celebrimbor's ambition. He merely gave it a direction. The Rings of Power were born from that temptation. And for a brief moment, everything seemed successful. The rings could preserve, protect, enhance. They seemed capable of holding back the slow erosion of the world. Exactly what the elves had always wanted. Exactly what Celebrimbor dreamed of creating. And that is what makes the tragedy so horrifying. Because the rings were never truly about power. They were about control. Control over change, control over loss, control over time itself. But some things cannot be controlled. When Sauron forged the One Ring, the truth was revealed. The entire system had been corrupted from the beginning. The dream was a trap, the hope was an illusion, and suddenly Celebrimbor understood. Every hour, every year, every effort had served Sauron's design. Imagine spending your entire life creating your masterpiece, then discovering it was secretly built to enslave the world. That realization alone would have shattered most people. But Celebrimbor's suffering was only beginning. When Sauron invaded Eregion, he demanded the rings. Celebrimbor refused. He endured torture, pain beyond description, and still he resisted. He revealed the locations of the lesser rings, but he never surrendered the three. Even facing unimaginable torment, he protected them. Many people see this as a moment of heroism, and it was. But it was also something else, the final proof of his tragedy. Because only now, when everything had already been lost, did Celebrimbor fully understand the game he had been playing. This is where things get darker. After Sauron finally killed him, he did something horrifying. He used Celebrimbor's body as a banner. His corpse was carried before Sauron's armies, displayed as a trophy, a message, a warning to everyone who opposed him. Think about that for a moment. Celebrimbor spent his life trying to create symbols of beauty and preservation. In death, he was transformed into a symbol of terror. His body became propaganda. His identity became a weapon. Everything he had built was twisted against its purpose. But even that isn't the most disturbing part, because the true horror of Celebrimbor's fate extends beyond his death. His greatest failure survived him. The rings endured, the consequences endured, the shadow endured. His choices continued shaping history for thousands of years. The wars, the corruption, the suffering, the rise of Sauron, all connected to the moment he believed he could preserve what was never meant to be preserved. And that leads us to the deepest truth of all. Celebrimbor's story is not really about deception. It's about humanity's oldest temptation, the desire to stop change, the desire to hold on to what must eventually pass away, the desire to master fate itself. Most people never realize that Sauron and Celebrimbor wanted surprisingly similar things. Both wanted order, both wanted permanence, both wanted a world free from uncertainty. The difference was merely how far they were willing to go, and Tolkien understood something profound. Evil often begins where acceptance ends, the moment we refuse to accept limits, the moment we refuse to accept loss, the moment we believe we should control everything. That is where darkness enters. Because the world is not meant to stand still. Nothing lasts forever. Not kingdoms, not beauty, not power, not even the greatest works ever created. Celebrimbor's tragedy was believing otherwise. His fate wasn't simply death. It was discovering that the thing he loved most had become the instrument of catastrophe, that his masterpiece carried the seeds of destruction from the beginning. And perhaps that's why his story remains so haunting. Because unlike many heroes, Celebrimbor wasn't destroyed by hatred. He was destroyed by hope, by noble intentions, by a dream that seemed beautiful until it wasn't. And somewhere beneath the ruins of Eregion, the echo of that lesson still remains. A reminder that some gifts come wrapped in promises, some promises come wrapped in lies, and sometimes the most dangerous chains are the ones we willingly forge ourselves. But Celebrimbor's tragedy raises an even stranger question. If Sauron could deceive the greatest craftsman of the Second Age, how did one mysterious being in Middle-earth remain completely untouched by the power of the ring? And the answer may be even more unsettling than Celebrimbor's fate itself, Idifalf.